No intro needed. Forget flowery language. Real history bleeds. 868 AD. Winchester's halls throb with the pulse of a wedding. Alfred, all of 19, Mercian bride beside him, sealing a political pact that will hopefully mean less Vikings. Laughter, mead, the whole show. But forget the romance novel bullshit. That night, bridal chamber, Alfred clutched his gut, agony ripping through him like a damn Viking axe. Not love, but fire. Raw, searing fire. Doctors useless. Blame everything. Some say it's witchcraft. Vikings probably wish. The pain starts as a jolt, a subtle shift in the jovial atmosphere of the wedding feast. As the final songs are sung and the nobles begin to retire to their chambers, Alfred feels a twinge in his abdomen, a sharp, unwelcome sensation that momentarily distracts him from his duties. He dismisses it as the result of rich foods and strong ale, but as the night progresses, the pain intensifies. Inside the bridal chamber, the initial discomfort explodes into an overwhelming wave of agony. Alfred doubles over, clutching his stomach, as if trying to contain the inferno raging within. His face contorts in a grimace, and beads of sweat break out on his brow, despite the cool autumn air. He tries to suppress the cries that threaten to escape his lips, not wanting to alarm his new bride or the servants nearby. But the pain is relentless, a burning, twisting sensation that radiates through his body, leaving him gasping for breath. He stumbles towards the bed, collapsing onto the mattress, his body racked with spasms. Servants, hearing the commotion, rush into the chamber, their faces etched with concern and confusion. They find Alfred writhing in agony, his eyes wide with fear and desperation. He waves them away, muttering assurances that it is nothing, a passing illness brought on by the festivities. But his words are unconvincing, and the servants exchange worried glances. They know that something is terribly wrong, but they dare not question their prince. As the night wears on, the pain subsides slightly, but it never completely disappears. Alfred lies in bed, exhausted and shaken, his body still throbbing with discomfort. He tries to convince himself that it was just a temporary affliction, a fluke that will not be repeated. But deep down, he knows that something has changed. He has been marked by a hidden enemy, an insidious force that will haunt him for the rest of his days. The wedding night, meant to be a celebration of love and unity, has become a crucible of suffering, the beginning of a lifelong battle against a foe that no sword or strategy can defeat. The pain strikes without warning, a cruel ambush in the midst of joy. Chroniclers later record it as starting that very night, a sudden affliction that leaves Alfred writhing on his bed, sweat beading his brow despite the chill autumn air. The sensations are overwhelming, severe cramps that seize his bowels like iron vices, twisting and squeezing until he gasps for breath. His digestive system rebels completely, forcing him to retreat from public view during the worst episodes. He strains for relief, his body betraying him with waves of nausea that empty his stomach of the feast's remnants. The pain migrates downward, settling in his lower regions, a burning discomfort that swells into painful lesions, making every movement, every attempt to sit or stand, a fresh trial. The wounds become infected and refuse to heal, forcing him to take measures to conceal his condition from the court. Nights become endless trials. Sleep eludes him as the agony pulses, ebbing only to surge anew, leaving him weak and trembling by dawn. In an era where medicine blends superstition with crude remedies, Alfred's affliction baffles all. Whispers spread through the court. Some blame dark sorcery, a curse from Viking shamans envious of his rising star. Others murmur of demonic possession, the devil twisting his innards as punishment for some hidden sin. Physicians, drawing from ancient texts, diagnose it as piles, hemorrhoids swollen by royal excess, or perhaps a humoral imbalance, where black bile overwhelms the body's harmony. No one dares suggest it might stem from deeper rot, an inflammation gnawing at his very core. Modern experts, peering back through centuries, point to Crohn's disease, a relentless autoimmune assault on the digestive tract, where the body's defenses turn inward, inflaming intestines into scarred, ulcerated ruins. Untreatable in the 9th century, it explains the cycles of flare-ups, remissions of deceptive calm shattered by brutal relapses. Left unchecked, it could lead to perforations, sepsis, and slow death, all while sapping strength from even the mightiest warrior. Desperate for relief, Alfred turns to the healers of his time. Their cures a parade of barbarity masked as wisdom. From the ancient medical tome known as the Bald's Leech Book, a compendium of Anglo-Saxon remedies compiled under his own reign, he seeks solace. Concoctions of fennel seeds boiled in wine, meant to soothe the inward tenderness. Licorice root and herbs steeped in ale are forced down his throat, bitter brews that promise to ease its condition, but often worsen the symptoms, leaving him dehydrated and frail. For the external symptoms, salves of various herbs mixed with oils are applied, offering fleeting relief before the discomfort returns with vengeance. Envoys from distant lands bring exotic remedies. A patriarch from the Holy Land sends elixirs of crushed pearls dissolved in wine, touted as miracles for strange griefs. Alfred submits to them all, enduring the bitter tastes and uncomfortable applications, his royal dignity stripped in private chambers where servants avert their eyes. But these treatments are futile, often making matters worse. Bloodletting follows. Leeches latch to his arms and legs to purify corrupted humors, draining vital fluids until he sways with dizziness. Hot irons are pressed to his skin in quarterly attempts, searing flesh to burn out the evil, filling the room with the stench of charred meat as Alfred bites down on leather straps to stifle screams. The pain intensifies, spreading upward to his stomach, where it feels like constant gnawing from within. He loses weight rapidly, his once athletic frame hollowing out, cheeks sinking, and eyes shadowing with exhaustion. Yet, through it all, Alfred clings to faith. He prays incessantly, prostrating before altars in Winchester's Minster, begging God to lighten his burden. In his view, this suffering is a divine trial, a scourge to temper his soul like iron in a forge. "If this be thy will," he whispers in the dead of night, "grant me strength to bear it." He fears not just the pain, but its shadow on his leadership. How can a king who suffers in secret command armies against Vikings? The affliction's toll is profound, a private war waged amid public triumphs. During council meetings, Alfred masks winces behind stern nods, excusing himself to chambers where he collapses in solitude. Hunts become trials. The jolt of horseback riding aggravates his condition, forcing him to dismount early under pretexts of strategy. Feasts turn treacherous, rich foods triggering episodes that leave him bedridden for days. Rumors swirl. Courtiers gossip of the king's mysterious malady, some pitying, others scheming to exploit perceived weakness. Foreign spies note his color, wondering if Wessex's shield is cracking. Yet, Alfred endures, his iron will forging ahead. He channels the suffering into resolve, using quiet hours of recovery to ponder reforms, laws, schools, defenses that will define his legacy. Desperate for relief, Alfred turns to the healers of his time. Their cures a parade of barbarity masked as wisdom. From the ancient medical tome known as the Bald's Leech Book, a compendium of Anglo-Saxon remedies compiled under his own reign, he seeks solace. Concoctions of fennel seeds boiled in wine, meant to soothe the inward tenderness. Licorice root and herbs steeped in ale are forced down his throat, bitter brews that promise to ease his condition, but often worsen the symptoms, leaving him dehydrated and frail. For the external symptoms, salves of various herbs mixed with oils are applied, offering fleeting relief before the discomfort returns with vengeance. Envoys from distant lands bring exotic remedies. A patriarch from the Holy Land sends elixirs of crushed pearls dissolved in wine, touted as miracles for strange griefs. Alfred submits to them all,
enduring the bitter tastes and uncomfortable applications, his royal dignity stripped in private chambers, where servants avert their eyes. But these treatments are futile, often making matters worse. Bloodletting follows. Leeches latch to his arms and legs to purify corrupted humors, draining vital fluids until he sways with dizziness. Hot irons are pressed to his skin in quarterly attempts, searing flesh to burn out the evil, filling the room with the stench of charred meat as Alfred bites down on leather straps to stifle screams. The pain intensifies, spreading upward to his stomach, where it feels like constant gnawing from within. He loses weight rapidly, his once athletic frame hollowing out, cheeks sinking, and eyes shadowing with exhaustion. Yet, through it all, Alfred clings to faith. He prays incessantly, prostrating before altars in Winchester's minster.
Forget glory. This is about grit. Years pass. Alfred fights Vikings, builds walls, pretends to be strong. Inside, the pain eats at him. Doctors still useless, just burning, cutting, praying. Imagine leading an army, knowing your guts could explode at any moment. The irony isn't lost on him, but he keeps it bottled. A king can't be weak. His people need a rock. He has to pretend, and it's a draining game. By the 870s, as Alfred's reign solidified with hardened victories over the Vikings, the affliction that struck on his wedding night had evolved into something far more insidious. A chronic predator lurking within, sapping his strength while the world saw only the unbreakable king. What began as sporadic episodes of pain now wove itself into the fabric of his daily life, transforming the once vigorous warrior into a man whose body was slowly deteriorating. The disease, likely Crohn's in modern terms, flared unpredictably. Weeks of relative calm shattered by days of debilitating symptoms that left him confined to his chambers, doubled over on straw mattresses, his frame wasting away. He grew gaunt, his cheeks hollowing like carved wood, ribs protruding under his tunic as poor nutrition gnawed at him. Constant digestive distress and internal bleeding drained his vitality, turning a king who once outrun hunters into one who struggled to mount a horse without discomfort. Fatigue became his constant shadow, an exhaustion so profound it felt like lead in his limbs, forcing him to rest in hidden alcoves during long councils. Yet outwardly, he projected unyielding strength, his blue eyes still flashing with command, masking the deterioration beneath. The irony was staggering. Alfred, the savior who rallied armies against Viking axes, now waged a secret war against his own flesh. His spirit remained a fortress, unconquered, defiant, but his body betrayed him at every turn. During hunts, once a source of joy, the motion of riding stirred internal discomfort, forcing him to dismount early under the guise of scouting ahead. Feasts, symbols of royal abundance, turned treacherous. Rich meats and ales triggered episodes, sending him retreating to private quarters where servants discreetly managed his care. Even battle preparations strained him. The weight of chainmail pressed on his weakened frame. Yet he led charges at Edington, his commands booming over the clash of shields, while pain twisted inside like a coiled serpent. Chroniclers noted his pallor during triumphs, attributing it to the rigors of war, never suspecting the internal siege. Foreign envoys arriving with gifts of Frankish wine marveled at his wisdom, but whispered of his weary gaze, unaware that nights were spent in prayer, begging for respite from a torment that no enemy could inflict. To conceal this decay, Alfred orchestrated an elaborate performance of kingship, turning vulnerability into veiled strength. Before his court, he moved with deliberate poise, excusing absences as times of reflection or divine communion. He surrounded himself with loyal scribes and advisors, dictating reforms from his chambers during difficult periods, transforming suffering into productivity. His law code, blending ancient justice with mercy, was born in such moments, hours of discomfort fueling visions of a unified realm.
Schools for young nobles sprang up, inspired by his own late literacy, as if educating others could defy his physical decline. Prayer became his shield. In Winchester's minster, he prostrated for hours, interpreting suffering as God's forge, tempering him for greater trials. He confided in few, perhaps only his closest kin, fearing that whispers of weakness could invite Viking raids or internal rebellions. Rumors of the king's mysterious ailment circulated in hushed tones among nobles, but he quashed them with displays of vigor, hosting grand assemblies where he recited poetry flawlessly, his voice steady despite the storm within. The psychological toll was as brutal as the physical. Anxiety gnawed at him like the disease itself, fear that an episode might strike during crucial moments, leaving Wessex exposed. Dread that his heirs would inherit a fractured throne if he faltered. Depression crept in during periods of isolation, dark thoughts of divine punishment for past failures. But he channeled it into resolve. "This trial I bear," he might have whispered in solitary vigils, "shall not break me." It fueled his innovations. The burhs, those walled havens, weren't just defenses against Vikings, but symbols of enduring strength amid personal frailty. His navy, patrolling misty coasts, mirrored his own vigilance against internal collapse. Even family life suffered. His marriage produced children, but intimate moments were complicated by his condition, leaving emotional scars on those closest to him. As decades wore on, the decay deepened. By his 40s, periods of relief grew shorter, episodes more severe. Weight loss accelerated, his once muscular arms thinning to sinew and bone. Sleep evaded him, haunted by discomfort that jolted him awake, sweat-soaked and gasping. Daily tasks became battles. Eating provoked nausea, movement stirred pain. Yet he persisted, signing treaties and planning campaigns from shadowed halls. The signs of his condition sometimes showed, masked by herbal remedies tucked in his robes. Couriers noticed his increasing need for privacy, attributing it to strategic genius rather than bodily betrayal. Vikings, sensing no weakness, respected the peace he enforced, unaware their greatest foe was crumbling from within. This hidden deterioration reshaped Alfred, not into a broken man, but a legend forged in fire. His reforms, laws, learning, defenses blossomed from suffering, turning personal torment into national triumph. Yet the cost mounted. A king who conquered invaders but couldn't subdue his own body. A hero whose greatest victory was enduring in silence. The golden warrior of youth had become a vessel of decay, his iron will the only barrier against collapse. But as age advanced, even that will would be tested to its limits. For 20 years, Alfred had managed to contain his secret war, to rule despite the deterioration within. But bodies, even royal ones, have limits. And in the autumn of 899, those limits would finally be reached. What began as familiar discomfort would escalate into something unimaginable. 30 days that would test not just a king's endurance, but the very boundaries of human suffering.
Forget heroism. Here's reality. Alfred, 50, guts burning, dying. No Viking battle, just his own body turning against him. Weeks of agony, doctors flailing. Prayer maybe helps the soul, not the intestines. He still tries to rule, still signs laws, still plans defenses. Imagine the pain. And nobody really knows. They see the king, not the broken man inside. That's true courage. Not waving a sword, but just fucking existing. October 899. Dawn breaks over Winchester, the heart of Wessex, where stone walls and thatched roofs huddle against the autumn chill. Alfred, now 50, stirs in his royal chamber. But instead of rising to command, he lets out a deep groan that echoes through the timber halls. What starts as a familiar discomfort escalates into intense agony, a searing fire ripping through his abdomen as if his innards are being torn asunder by invisible forces.
Servants burst in, their faces ashen, finding their king doubled over on his bed, sweat drenching his linen shift despite the frost outside. This is no ordinary episode. This is the beginning of the end, a final assault from the disease that has haunted him for over 3 decades. Modern scholars point to Crohn's complications, perhaps a perforated bowel or sepsis, where infection floods the bloodstream, turning the body against itself. In Alfred's time, it's simply God's final trial, a torment that will consume him over the next weeks in a slow, agonizing descent toward death. The crisis unfolds day by day, a relentless march toward death that spares no mercy for England's greatest king. By October 10th, the pain has intensified beyond anything he's experienced. Severe cramps seizing his gut, forcing him to clench his fists until his knuckles turn white. His digestive system fails completely, alternating between painful blockages and uncontrollable episodes that leave him weak and dehydrated. Fever spikes, his skin burning to the touch, alternating with chills that rack his frame like autumn storms. Weakness spreads through his body. His legs buckle when he tries to stand, forcing him to be carried to council meetings on a litter. His once piercing eyes now clouded with pain. Nausea overwhelms him. Even sips of herbal broth are rejected, mixed with bile that leaves a metallic taste. His body, already weakened from years of illness, deteriorates further. Skin sagging over bones, cheeks sinking into deep hollows, making him look like a shadow of his former self. Healers swarm like bees to a dying hive, their remedies a desperate barrage of futility. Potions from the ancient leech book, boiled roots and wine-infused herbs are offered, but they only provoke more distress, adding to his misery. Warm compresses applied to his belly offer momentary relief before the pain rebounds fiercer. Bloodletting resumes, leeches applied to his arms until he sways with weakness, his blood thin and dark. A foreign physician, perhaps from distant courts, suggests exotic treatments of crushed stones mixed with oils applied in thick layers that crack and flake, doing nothing but add to the indignity. Prayer vigils fill the minster. Monks chant psalms round the clock, incense smoke curling like spirits, while Alfred whispers confessions, fearing this agony is divine retribution for wars or unfulfilled vows. No relief exists from the constant torment. He endures fully aware, his mind sharp amid the chaos, trapped in a body that's become a prison of flesh and fire. Remarkably, Alfred clings to kingship even as death approaches. He summons advisors to his bedside, voice feeble but commanding, signing decrees with a trembling hand that smears ink across parchment. Military plans against lingering Viking threats are dictated through gritted teeth, his words punctuated by pauses for breath. He receives envoys propped on pillows, his pallor hidden under furs, discussing alliances while pain courses through him. Chroniclers record his final wisdom, reflections on learning, justice, and faith, penned in letters to his heirs. Do not forsake the books, he urges. His legacy a bulwark against the suffering. Nobles gather, awed by his resilience, some weeping at the sight of their England's darling reduced to a shadow. Rumors spread beyond the walls, Vikings hearing of the king's decline, testing borders. But Alfred's iron will holds the realm steady, his endurance a silent shield for Wessex. As October drags into its final days, the deterioration accelerates into nightmare. By the 20th, visible signs of infection appear on his skin, perhaps from poor circulation or the disease spread, requiring constant care from servants who struggle with the challenges of his condition. His breathing grows labored, chest heaving as complications affect his lungs, each inhale a rasp like rustling leaves in a storm. Delirium sets in. Visions of Viking battles mix with heavenly calls, making him mutter prophecies in fevered dreams. He loses basic bodily functions entirely, requiring full-time care from devoted attendants. His limbs swell with retained fluid, skin stretching taut and shiny. While his abdomen shows clear signs of internal distress, unconscious spells lengthen, hours where he lies still as death, only to jolt awake with cries that pierced the night, echoing through Winchester's streets and frightening the townsfolk. Foreign observers drawn by tales of the great king's decline arrived to witness what they call a royal martyrdom. A Frankish envoy writes of the somber spectacle, describing Alfred's condition as consumed by invisible flames. Monks document every moment, seeing it as saintly endurance. But the reality is raw human frailty. A man who saved a nation now unable to save himself. His family gathers, wife and children at bedside, their tears mixing with prayers as Alfred whispers farewells, his voice fading like autumn wind. "I have fought the good fight," he rasps, echoing scripture. His final words a testament to unyielding spirit.
Forget monuments. Even heroes turn to dust. Alfred died screaming. Maybe not screaming, but you get the idea after weeks of hell. Doctors failed. Faith wavered. He ended up just being a body like any other. Bones scattered. History ignores the pain. But that pain, that's what made him. You can't have light without darkness. And the light he brought England came from his own personal darkness. On October 26th, 899, the end comes at last. In the pre-dawn hush, Alfred's heart stutters, his body convulsing one final time before going still. No grand fanfare, just a quiet exhale in a room heavy with sorrow. The cause? Likely sepsis from complications of his chronic illness, the disease claiming victory after years of siege. His body, weakened and marked by suffering, is prepared hastily, treated with herbs to preserve dignity, wrapped in fine linens for burial in Winchester's Old Minster. But even in death, irony pursues him. Over centuries, his remains are moved, first to a new minster in 903, then to Hyde Abbey in 1110. In 1539, during the dissolution of monasteries, the abbey is destroyed, graves disturbed. Prisoners digging foundations in 1788 scatter the remains. Today, Alfred's bones are lost, perhaps mingled in unmarked ground or vanished entirely. The king, who built enduring defenses, leaves no trace of his mortal shell, his legacy etched in history while his body dissolves into anonymity. This final torment strips away the myth. Alfred, the unvanquished hero, dies in prolonged agony, his divine trials culminating in human frailty. Yet his endurance inspires. Wessex thrives. England unites under his heirs. The great king forged in pain proves that true greatness lies not in the body, but in the unbreakable soul. That's the brutal truth.